It's there! Holy moly, this one's gonna go big!
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Sorry that content has been a little bit thin on the ground recently. I know I need to pull my finger out a bit, so I thought I'd get a video done this side of Christmas. I'm not sure there's much going to get done over Christmas and New Year because I am working throughout and I'm covering the 24/7 on-call rota as well, so I thought I'd take this opportunity just to get a video done while I can. Now, you may remember at the end of the previous Fruit Machine emulation video I did, the trick I worked out for myself, but at the end of that video, because it was going on a bit, it was pushing up towards half an hour, I said, you know what, I did want to have a chat about double blue chip, but left it off the end of that video. So what we're going to do today is do that bit about double blue chip and have the little chat about double blue chip. Now, if I had to put a date on this, I would say 1990. I guess it's possible that it's 1991, but I would think 1990. If anyone's got any kind of old flyers or promotional material or anything like that to prove it one way or the other, do let me know. But I would say that this is 1990, maybe 91 at a push. And it's by a company called PCP. Now, PCP, if you're not aware, were basically a rebuild company. That they take machines that have, at the end of their life, they've been sold originally by one of the top tier manufacturers, your Ace, your BFM, your Barcrest, your Maygay, whoever, and they take the old machines, they re-glass them, they rework them, but they keep all the internal gubbins and they release these machines as rebuilds. And the whole point of rebuilds is that they are cheaper than buying a brand new machine. So you can get a, inverted commas, a new machine without actually having to pay top dollar for a brand new machine. And I think it's pretty obvious what PCP were going for with this game here. It looks to me like they would have been punting this out as a cheap way to get on the 777 Heaven bandwagon. Now, I have made a video about 7 Heaven already. That's already on the channel. You can see there, 7 Heaven, an impressive project. And what you've got to bear in mind here is that 7 Heaven was incredibly popular. That machine did very, very well. And projects, low-techs at the time in general, were just doing very well. And I have mentioned this before, but at this time, 1990, 91, maybe into 92, it was not actually unusual to see low-techs in pubs as well, not just in arcades. You would very often find low-tech machines in pubs. 7 Heaven, for example, was quite a common sight in pubs. This fellow on the left here, Ace's Play It Again, was quite a common sight in pubs. Now, double blue chip was rebuilt into the Sys1 technology, and Sys1 was the technology that Ace used before they moved to the space tech. So this machine here on the left, Play It Again by Ace, I believe, could be wrong, but I think that this is the first machine that Ace released on the space technology, and they just moved over from Sys1 here. So with Ace having moved to a new technology, they were no longer using System 1. It makes sense that there were a lot of System 1 machines that were out on site that were coming to the end of their lives, and obviously Ace were very keen to push people towards the newer space machines that they were producing, starting with Play It Again. I think Twilight Zone were two of the earliest ones. And what I think happened here is that PCP thought that they wanted a little bit of this sweet 7 Heaven / Play It Again action, and what they came up with was a rebuild into System 1 machines that very, very clearly is designed to be around the 7 Heaven aesthetic. They've changed the 7s to 5s, but they've kept all the tiers of wins there. You can see that we've got the boxes going on with the blue chips themselves. They've added a couple of win variations to the pay table that you couldn't get on 7 Heaven, but it is pretty clearly aimed very much at the 7 Heaven market, and I would be fascinated to see if there are any flyers or promotional material going around for this machine from back in the day. I've had a look across all the Fruit Machine emulation sites, I can't find any, but my guess would be that PCP were basically punting this out as a cheap way to get yourself a 7 Heaven machine. And I would say that they were very, very successful, because the thing with this is, and It's also one of them where in the release thread over at Desert Island Fruits, We Are City made the kind of same point that I was thinking in my head as well. Just for the record here, this is a Vectra 666 release, so as ever, thank you to Vectra for all this release. There's also a load of thanks in there to all the people that helped make this layout happen, so as ever, it is a big thank you to everyone who were part of bringing this machine to us. But the comment down here that stuck out to me by We Are City is another one of those fruit machines that seemed to be everywhere back in the day. And he is completely right about that, because these things really did turn up en masse. I remember when these things turned up in the arcades at Blackpool. Now, we used to go up to Blackpool quite regularly. Sometimes I'd just go up there on the train by myself or a couple of friends, or we'd often go there of an evening, maybe once every couple of months, because we lived in Manchester. Blackpool's not that far away. My dad would drive me and my brother and a couple of my mates out to Blackpool, and we'd have an evening. My dad would kind of busy himself in he'd sit in the cafe and read the paper, and me and my brother and my mates would go around the arcades playing video games and pinball to start with. But obviously 1990 and 1991 were when I was starting to get into fruit machines, and that's when my attention in the arcade started to turn to fruit machines as well, would be around that time frame. And I remember when these double blue chips turned up, and it was like an invasion. It was like every single arcade seemed to, I'm not just talking one or two, but they would have 6 or 7 or 8 of them, kind of in banks, rows of these machines. And all the big, you had Mr. B's, you had Funland, you had Coral Island. There was a whole, I'm sure if you've ever been to the Golden Mile in Blackpool, you know what I'm talking about. And they all got loads of these machines in at the same time. I also remember that we went down to Alton Towers, and that would have been 1991. They had an arcade inside Alton Towers itself. And I'm not kidding, they had about 6 of these things, these double blue chips, just in a row. So I don't know exactly how it was that PCP went about promoting these things and punting them out, but it seemed to me that they did a very good job, because there were loads of them all over the place. But then it seemed that just as quickly as they turned up, they all vanished again. Now, I guess one of the issues with this is that they are quite old-fashioned. Obviously, they're running on the Sys1 tech. This was an end-of-life tech. It had been supplanted by the space tech, which Ace had moved on to. So you've got no sampled sound going on. You've got pretty basic bloopy bleepy sound. In honesty, the machines themselves are fairly limited. You've got basic 3 reelers, not much going in the way of, they've done a reasonable job with the display there, I suppose, but there was no getting away from the fact that even in 1990 and 91 they were fairly old-fashioned style machines. So I guess as the newer wave of machines started to come out, these things started to look quite long in the tooth fairly quickly. But you could go to Blackpool sort of 1 month and they were everywhere. You go back a couple of months later and their numbers had diminished dramatically, and not long after that it just seemed that they'd all vanished completely. Now, my memory of playing these, because I did play them quite a lot, is that they were incredibly streaky. Now, there are loads of different ROMs. Here are just some of the ROMs that appear to be available. And that we've got some old cache ROMs. We've got what look like Isle of Man ROMs. So we've got Arcade Island, Arcade Standard, then we've just got some other ROMs there. So I guess it's quite possible that there were different ROMs with different profiles. You can see how tiny they are there. The whole thing just runs on 4 8-kilobyte ROMs. So the whole thing was just running on 32 kilobytes of code. But yeah, obviously it is possible that there were different ROM revisions released that played with different profiles, but the ones that I remember playing were brutal. If you caught them wrong, they would take you apart, but if you could catch them on the street, they had a really solid sort of 30, 40, even 50 pound streak in them. Lots of tokens going on. So yeah, if you could catch them right, happy days, but if you caught them wrong, they would rip a huge chunk of cash out of you. So with all that said, let's have a little go on it. Now, there's not, as you can imagine, there isn't a huge amount going on here, so do manage your expectations. We have got a reasonably basic low tech here. There are a few things to look out for. It can do some funny flashes on the whole buttons and that kind of thing. So there are that's a good start, isn't it? Well, I think even I can manage a jackpot there, so let's just nudge that down for a jackpot. It's not exactly I guess this is the thing. You've got to imagine here that PCP were very much constrained by the system. For a hold there, no hold. They were very much constrained by the technology that they were rebuilding into, and obviously Sys1 was an old tech at this point, so that is going to limit what they can do in terms of game design and game features. We don't even have, for example, we don't even have it over the boxes there. Oh, it gave me an extra nudge. Well, that's handy, isn't it? Okay. See there, just flash the extra light and we got, well, we can get the boxes there for a quid, I suppose, can't we? May as well just get a quid. You can see there, it doesn't even have actual proper real lamps. All this had in it was just like a fluorescent tube in there, so you haven't even got any real lamps going on. Very basic 3 reels. We haven't got any kind of gambles going on or anything like that. So there was only really one reason to play these. It was just all about the streak. They weren't, I mean, let's be honest, there's not any great depth to the gameplay here, but I put a fair few bob through there. Oh, there, that was the boxes there. You can do the thing with the boxes where you're guaranteed a nudge, or nudges if you hold them. Or you can just spin, I think you get 3 nudges like you do on 7 Heaven. Well, yeah, we'll just take the boxes there for a quid. And again, you can imagine the sound is quite limited as well. It's not an amazing jackpot sequence, to say the least. What shall we have a speculative hold there? That was a little bit optimistic, but you never know. Obviously, your star there is a £2.40 win, so you need to double that up with the boxes to make it £4.80. And your 5s work very much like the 7s on 7 Heaven. We'll go for that. That's £2.40 win if we can get it. Obviously, there's no niceties. Oh well, there's no niceties like 3 holds, but it is worth holding because they can drop in sometimes. Oh, there we go. And one other thing that... Oh, what have we got up there? Oh, look at that! With the boxes as well. Fantastic. Top prize! There is, I'll just show you as well, there's actually a JPEG of the original, what looks like the operator's manual. Let's just look out for a hold there, and it can show, which shows the dip switch settings for the various percentage settings that you can... Oh, did you see there? So it just hinted at me that I can get mixed 5s there, so I think that's a hold them all and press cancel, and it'll step down. There we are. So I mean, that is a little bit of something. Oh, there we are. See there? Now, is this... I always heard that on 7 Heaven, that if it held mixties, if you cancelled it and then span it, shall we let, you know what, for the sake of this, let's just see if we can, well, that didn't work very well, did it? But obviously I could have just held there for another £1.20. I thought I'd get fancy and it didn't really work very well. I've got it in my head that the bank limit on this one is 20 quid as well. I don't know whether that's just for this specific ROM revision or not, but we'll take it out to the bank limit. And then we'll have a look at the... We may as well hold that. Then we'll have a look at that operator's manual that I was talking about. Which does suggest, by the way, that there is some stuff out there, some actual documentation for this machine, so that would be interesting to see. I love looking at the old flyers and manuals and that kind of thing. And that would also give us the exact date as well, which we don't have, but it's got to be 1990 or 1991. I cannot imagine it would be anything other than one of those 2 years. And if I had to put money on it, if I had to have a bet, I'd say it was 1990. And obviously not long after this, of course, the £6 jackpot era started as well. So let's just... I'll just take it out to the bank limit, and then we'll go and have a look at the operator's manual. We can see the dip switch settings. And interestingly, you can also see what percentage PCP themselves recommended that operators set this machine at, because I suspect that there were not many operators who set this game to what PCP suggested that it be set to. We may as well hold those two, I suppose. Oh, bollocks, I was a little bit too hasty. Oh, there we are. So that's going to be the £2 win there, isn't it? Because you can see there we've got double chips on either side. And we didn't get a flash for the hold there. Ooh dear. So we haven't done too bad here. We haven't done too bad either in terms of its pay. It's behaving sort of fairly, even though we haven't had a streak or anything, it's actually behaving quite kindly in terms of building the bank up. There we are. We'll just take it out to a jackpot. I've got it in my head, it's 20 quid, the bank limit on that, so we'll take it out to that. Ooh, we got our boxed 5s there, but no hold, unfortunately. But as you can see here, it's gone quiet for a few quid. You really didn't want... If you got this when it was in a bad mood, it would take you apart. I do remember getting some horrific just some horrific maulings in general in the arcades of Blackpool, but, you know, where once I transitioned from playing, you know, video games and pinballs to fruit machines, you can imagine that my money tended not to last as long, and I definitely remember getting some horrible kickings off this game. Even though it kind of looks a little bit more old-fashioned and it looks like it might be, you know, it's kind of got more in common with like a 2p machine or a 5p play machine, but you've got to remember that this was a full fat 20p £4.80 jackpot. There were other stake and prize combinations, but this was the top stake and prize combination at that time. You could not go above 20p £4.80. But there were a lot of very gentle, kind of low variance machines around. They weren't too volatile. You could get some decent gameplay out of them for your money. But, I mean, I don't know how many quid I've gone through here. That bank there of £17, that has been like that for several pounds now. Certainly this thing could just have a tenner off you. It would have a 10, 15 quid off you like that. And you'd, oh, there we are, you'd maybe have one, oh, there we are, you'd maybe have one, like, £1.20 win or something like that to show for it. So I think that will take us up over the bank limit. Or it might just prove me to be a liar. I think it's 20 quid. It is indeed 20 quid. I did not misremember. Okay, how much of that is it going to pay out? All the tokens? I think it'll pay out all the tokens and then leave the cash in. We'll just see. Oh, that sound of masses and masses of tokens paying out. Of course, every people who didn't know better thought you'd won a fucking fortune, but you could have put £30 in and then you get £20 of fucking tokens out at the end of it. So it's not as impressive as it sounds. Kind of thing that could get you in trouble at locally tight pubs as well, where the old boys in there think you've won a bloody fortune. You try and explain to them it was just 15 quid in tokens, but not to worry. Well, there we are. So we have had them all hold those two. It hasn't, not that there's any kind of through. We'll just put a quid in and see if we can get the hold after nudges there. Nope, no joy. So I think we've probably explored the gameplay side of this thing. Let's just hold after nudges there. Nope, not going to happen. So we'll just collect our cash as well, and let's just bring up the. Can we see that all right? Let me leverage technology and zoom in. So this is just one page out of what looks like the operator's manual. I'd be fascinated to see the rest of it. But the thing to look at down at the bottom here is recommended percentage settings, and PCP themselves are recommending that on 20p a play you have this set to 91%. Seriously folks, how many fucking operators do you think set this thing at 91%? The interesting thing though is that you can't set it lower than 78. You can see on that that row there, 10p and 20p, the lowest you can go is 78%, and you can go all the way up to 94%. 2p and 5p, you can look at that, 70% down there, up to 90% at the top end. But one thing I have noticed over the years, when you look at operators' manuals or sort of operator flyers that are aimed at the operators with kind of hints about how the manufacturer thinks their game should be set up, you will routinely see that they recommend having their games set to like 84% or 86%, something like that. I know there are a lot of Barcrest materials from back in the day where they were recommending that operators set their machines to 84% or 86%, and I'm sure we all know that arcades love to set them down at 74, 76, 78, something like that. But this is the highest I've ever seen. I've never seen something like this where we've got the manufacturer recommending that their machine be set to 91%, and I guess that reflects the fact that this, despite its kind of fairly basic, rebuildy, gentle machine kind of look, is a pretty ruthless game to play. And I guess PCP there are trying to offset that by suggesting that it be set to a 91% payout. I would like to have a... If I were having a guess as to how many operators actually set this thing to 91%, I would say precisely fuck all. And just for the record, here is a thread over at the Mecca where Vectra was releasing the £5 all cash ROMs, but by his own admission it's a quick redecal, which is fine, but you can see it there running on a 10p £5 combination, and they are all cash ROMs. But we're not quite sure if they are Irish or Isle of Man. They will have been one of those two markets, because remember, of course, certainly on the Isle of Man we never had token jackpots over here, and I have covered that in a previous video called A Token Difference. So there we are. I won't blither on too much because at the end of the day we are just talking about one old low tech here, but it's one that I did want to have a little chat about because it's one that I remember super clearly, and the interesting thing about it was how many of these things there were just all at once out of nowhere. Every arcade was just stuffed with them, but then within a few months they just all seemed to have vanished again, which is quite unusual for these kind of rebuild companies. Normally you'll see like one or two of their machines, and some of them are quite popular, of course, but I've never known a rebuild style machine to turn up and be as ubiquitous as Double Blue Chip was. Every single arcade had them, and some of them had just banks of them or rows of them. I still remember that arcade down at Alton Towers that had fucking 6 or 7 of them just in a line in one of their arcades inside the park itself. But my suspicion is that PCP sold these things at the right price, and that they sort of punted them out as a cheap way to get yourself a machine very much in the mould of 777 Heaven and the other low techs that were so successful at the time. Play It Again, of course. You got Barcrest with their Cloud 999 and all that lot. There were loads of these about, and not just in the arcades, they were in the pubs as well. So I will wrap this one up here. I'm sorry it's been a little bit quiet on the channel recently. I am particularly aware that I have been neglecting Fruit Machine emulation a bit. I'm hoping to get that rectified going into the new year, but I can't promise there will be much going on over the Christmas and New Year period. Like I say, I'm working throughout, and I'm on 24/7 on call as well, so you never quite know how that's going to pan out, but I've got quite a few things on my list of videos that I want to make for Fruit Machine emulation, so I am hoping to get those picked up in the new year. With that said, I don't think there'll be anything else before Christmas now, so I will take this opportunity, if I may, to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Hope you all have a good one, and I will catch up with you in the next video. Thanks you for watching this one, and as ever, I do hope you've enjoyed it. But that's it. Bye for now.